Stay tuned to hear the captivating journey of a woman who started a nonprofit organization in Tanzania while attending medical school in America. My name is Jason Bradley, and you're watching Urban Report. Hello and welcome to Urban Report. My guest today is Dr. Brianna Green, president of From Hearts to Hands Incorporated. Welcome to Urban Report, Dr. Green.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you here. And you know what? I find it interesting how God brings people together. I was in California with my wife, and we were, after church, we went to eat lunch with Aunt Yolanda and Uncle Schubert and ended up at one of your family's friend's house. And there you were sharing your journey with us about, how the organization got started and just some amazing things that have been taking place. And we were so blown away that you could start an organization that's in Tanzania while you were going to med school in America. That's absolutely incredible. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I was raised in Florida, so I grew up all around the beach. And from a young age, I was interested in medicine, but more so I was always interested in service. And I think a part of that has to do with growing up Seventh-day Adventist. I feel like missions is such a core piece of who we are, and so it's not uncommon to go to church and hear about a mission doctor in a faraway place, and so it made my dream feel really tangible. And so I remember at age 15 is the first time I know I actually wrote down, I hope in 10 years or so that you're in the mission field as a doctor. So that's kind of where the journey began.
Wow, that's incredible. So what steps did you take to get to that point?
Sure. So I first started off, of course, going to college, and I did a pre-medical degree. I actually studied religion, and it was in the second year of college where I went on a mission trip with my dad to India with Quiet Hour Ministries, and that kind of solidified for me that service was really cool and something that I was definitely interested in. But it also prompted me to want to go to a place for a longer amount of time. My initial trip was only 2 weeks, and I felt like I really wanted to get to know the core of the people where I was at and see exactly what their needs were, and see also what institutions were already in place helping address those needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so after college, I took a year off, and I flew to Tanzania by myself and stayed for 3 months, and that's really where the story of all of this begins.
Wow. What was Tanzania like, and what are the people like there?
So the people are so friendly and welcoming. When I landed in Tanzania, it's really cool because as you fly in, you see all different types of geography. So you will see mountains, dense green mountains. You'll also cross deserts. And when I landed, it was very hot, but the people were instantly very welcoming to me. The food is amazing, lots of fresh fruits and vegetables coming straight from the farm to your table. There is, paved roads that run through the center of town, but once you turn off to go to houses or different businesses, you're going to be on dirt roads, and it's very bumpy, and they call it the African massage as your back getting jostled as you go down the road. So it's definitely a different experience, but a great one.
Oh, that's wonderful. Were you afraid traveling by yourself at some? Because I know that you've also traveled quite a bit by yourself. Was that a scary experience for you?
I think the initial time was a bit scary, but I think my parents played a huge role in how comfortable I felt.
Mm-hmm.
They acted like it was a normal activity for me to be flying off at the age of 22 to spend 3 months abroad somewhere none of us had ever been. And so I remember feeling pretty confident, except on the last leg of the journey, flying from Europe to South Africa was my first flight to Africa. And I remember seeing a lot of groups that were like tour groups. And I realized at that moment, like, oh, I really am alone. And I don't even have a picture of the host family who's picking me up at the airport. So I think in that moment, I had a little bit of apprehension. But besides that, I was mostly excited.
Wow, wow. Now you have extremely supportive parents. You know, your dad, as you were telling the stories at the dinner table, and his face was glowing, and then he was sharing his point of view and everything. I wish we could have had him on today as well. Absolutely incredible. What area of focus are you going in as far as being a doctor? What's your specialty going to be?
So I'm going into pediatrics, so I'll be working with kids age 0 to 18. And then I'll also be doing a global emphasis, so global health, trying to take courses on that as well to prepare to go abroad later in my career.
Nice. And really, you know, with your ministry, you deal with a lot of children,
Yes,
don't you?
definitely. Yeah, kids are our focus for sure. I think when you can impact children young, you can really affect the rest of their life trajectory. And then when you impact the kid, you're also impacting the child and the family and the community. So it's really like a wildfire effect when you start with a child.
Absolutely. And so what projects have been completed, and how do you determine what projects need to be addressed?
hmm So yeah, there's been a lot of projects that I can walk you through, but I'll answer the second question first. So I think one thing that's really important when determining like what is the need is actually being physically present. So I think those first 3 months of living in Tanzania were really critical for me to just be with the people and see with my own eyes what the needs are instead of trying to determine that from afar. And so, for example, at the nursery school that I volunteered at, I noticed that there was a lot of issues with dental hygiene, and there was some discoloration of the teeth. And while that could be due to over fluoridation of the water, it could also be due to poor dental hygiene. And since I didn't know, I decided, well, let's tackle that problem first. And so that was the very first project in 2017, which was the Happy Teeth Center. So I put sinks and plumbing into this nursery school. There was no running water there before. And then all the children are supplied with their own toothbrush, toothpaste, and every morning they enter the nursery school through the Happy Teeth Center. There's posters, and the teachers there are instructing them on how to properly care for their teeth. So that was kind of the first big project, and it's just kind of you see a need, and then you figure out how can you fill that need.
Yeah, that's lovely. Now, those kids in the Happy Teeth Center, we actually have a picture of the kids in the Happy Teeth Center with you, and they look they look thrilled. They
Yeah,
look really happy.
yeah, that was opening day. So that was their first day finally getting to see this room that they weren't allowed in during the construction phase. So they were really
Uh-huh.
excited. Kind of like a Christmas morning, peeling back the wrapping paper, getting to see what this secret room was all about. So that was that year. And then I can share some of the other year's projects as well.
Yeah, please do.
Sure. So after that first year, I knew that I was definitely going to have to come back the following summer. But in 2017 as well, I did a clean water project. So before, all of the kids were kind of sharing 1 or like 5 cups to 60 kids for water. And instead, now each child has their own water bottle that's labeled. Each morning, a huge vat of water is boiled and sterilized, and then the kids have clean drinking water all day long. And then the next summer, I noticed that the children at the nursery school didn't have a safe place to play. So during recess hours, they were kind of wandering around. There's different farming equipment. It's just not a safe environment. And so we have a picture of this. I actually had a playground constructed, and there's a swing set as well. And the kids just absolutely loved it. And the only close playground in this area is actually located in the back of a bar. And so parents will kind of pay to drink and then have their kids use the playground. So we wanted kids to have a better option for sure. And they loved that.
I know the kids were super excited to get that new playground. So what are some other projects that you have going on?
Sure. So right after that playground project, I started the Mind Investor program, and that is a sponsorship program that takes kids from really crowded government schools, and I'm talking classroom ratios of one teacher to up to 100 students, and I shift them into a classroom, a private school that has maybe 30 kids to one teacher. And through this program, their boarding is paid for if they wanted to be boarding students, their books are paid for, transportation, meals, uniform, everything. And the goal is that their sponsors will carry them all the way through high school. So that's a really exciting one. And that
Wow.
actually, yeah, that one actually came about because at the nursery school, the teacher for the preschool kids was fantastic, but she actually was not formally educated. And so one summer I paid for her to start college, and she actually graduated with her certificate in early childhood education. And that was really exciting because, of course, she'll benefit, but also the kids are going to benefit from a more skilled teacher. And so now we have 10 kids who are in that program. And a really cool story that I have to share is about one of those kids. His name is Alex, and I first met him my very first summer there. I was going up through one of the towns hiking to a waterfall that's really popular. And what happens is when you get to the top of this mountain where the waterfall is, you'll see that these kids come out of nowhere, and they're local Maasai tribe kids. And what they do, since they're not in school, is they help tourists get down safely to the bottom where this waterfall is. And honestly, without him, I'm sure I would have died. I would have fell down. Absolutely. But what's crazy is that for the 5 hours that these kids spend with you, they may only get a $2 tip for all of their time. And they're also,
Wow.
unfortunately, not in school. And I remember, that really kind of broke my heart. And the next year or the year after, I went and did that hike again when I had returned to Tanzania. And I saw Alex again, and it was really disheartening because his life hadn't changed. And I said, you know what, let's take a video of you. Why don't you share your story a bit, and I'll see if I can get you a sponsor. So I brought that video back to America. I was able to get him a sponsor, and he actually attended a vocational college and graduated with his certificate in safari guide management. I then sent him to driving school, and now he's working for a bona fide safari company. And it was really cool because he sent me a message, and not only does he have a salary, but he said, "Hey, I got a $200 tip from this family that I took on this excursion." And to go from a $2 tip to a $200 tip, and now he's helping to support his family and trying to build them a better house. It's just really, really
Wow.
gratifying to see things like that
Praise
happen.
God. That's huge. You mentioned a sponsor. If we have viewers and listeners out there that may want to sponsor a child, how much would that cost?
Yeah, so it's $630 to cover an entire year. And again, that is tuition, room and board, meals, transportation. And as they matriculate into high school, the cost does go up, but it caps off around $1,100. And again, that's for an entire year. So,
That is incredible. Six,
yeah,
only,
and
yeah, that's definitely cheap enough for sure.
yeah, and education really is such a route for these kids to change their life trajectory. It makes job opportunities much more readily available for them, and then, they're really able to elevate themselves and their families.
Absolutely. Now, earlier you mentioned a project that I kind of want to circle back to, and that was the Happy Teeth project. There was a little backstory to that, right?
Yeah, so this story is really cool just because it's kind of the start of everything for me, but also because it shows how God led. So, when I had planned to go to Tanzania for these 3 months, I had originally planned to only volunteer at an orphanage. And while I did volunteer at that orphanage, about 3 doors down from the host family I stayed with was this nursery school where you saw a bunch of the projects happen. And I remember before I left for this trip, I stood up in front of church and just said, "Hey, I'm going on this trip. Like, please keep me in prayer." And this woman came up to me who none of us had ever seen before. We've never seen her since. And she handed me an envelope, and in it was $400. And she just said, "God will show you how to use this." And
Wow.
after that, I tried to contact her with the contact information I had. And to this day, I've never been able to reach her again. But I had that money kind of in my back pocket waiting to see, God, how can I use this? And I remember at the nursery school, when I saw the kids maybe not knowing good dental hygiene, I went to the nursery school director and I said, hey, can I maybe just put a plank of wood outside? We'll cut some holes in it, push some toothbrushes in there, and teach the kids how to brush their teeth outside with like the hose. And he was like, sure. Or I have this empty room and you can do whatever you want with it. And so I always tell people, be careful when you come to God with that open heart, open mind, because He will give you projects way beyond your wildest dreams. Because before you knew it, I was in the industrial markets, bargaining in Swahili for sinks, hiring plumbers, all of that. And I was able to finance it with the money that that lady had given me. So,
Wait a minute. I love how you just kind of glossed over that part. You were bargaining in Swahili.
yes.
So you
And
speak it fluently?
I can survive in it for sure. I'm always trying to get better at conversational Swahili, but in terms of like finding food, cooking food, bargaining, knowing the money, all of that, definitely. And I think what was so helpful with that was working with kids. So another thing I was doing was every day I was making lesson plans for these kids and creating like worksheets and crafts for them at home and bringing it the next day and kind of teaching their classes, because for the preschool age, unfortunately, there wasn't much hands-on, not much creativity, and the kids were, as a result, kind of unruly and running all over the classroom just because it's really hard to keep them engaged. And while the teachers were awesome, they just didn't have the supplies as well to help facilitate that engagement.
Yes.
And so I learned right away, if I want to, control this classroom or make any kind of impact, I have to learn how to communicate with these kids. And so that really also encouraged me to learn Swahili.
Oh man, that is amazing. How have you seen God move in other ways out there?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess before I go into that, I could tell you a couple more projects because he's
Yes.
moved through all of those.
Yes.
So, following the playground, the next year I came back, and the goal was to buy a school bus for this nursery school, because prior to this, they were transferring about 15 kids per trip in a five-seater car. So, yeah,
15 kids per trip in a five-seater car?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and obviously that's not the safest option. And so I fundraised all year long and was able to purchase a large 15-seater or more van. And that van was able to be gutted out, refurbished, brand new seat covers put on, and now the kids have a safe way to get to school. And it was really exciting to experience it this last summer, because while that happened in 2019, I was able to go this year, and the host family I stay with, their little girl now attends that nursery school. And so at the end of the day, I would hear the van honk and she'd come running in the house, and I would know that she was coming in from a safe trip instead of a trip that could have been really dangerous. So
Yes.
that was 2019. And then the next year we had the COVID pandemic. And so um, you would think that, oh no, all my projects have to stop. But God is really great, because luckily the Mind Investor program was already in place. So we were able to add more kids to that. But also, sometimes I will get a text message or a call about a child in need. And I got one about this little girl who was paralyzed from the waist down, and she was living in a Maasai village. And unfortunately, in some of those villages, any sort of birth deformity or birth defect is viewed as a curse, and that family is then really ostracized and put to the side. And so she wasn't having good medical care or any good care at all. And so once I learned about her, I was able to find a school for the disabled in Tanzania, about 8 hours away from where I normally go. But they had a good system in place for these kids with disabilities. And upon transferring her there, I was given, pictures and videos of the situation there. And I saw that a lot of the kids did not have wheelchairs. So I'm talking about children who are 10, 11 years old, dragging themselves across the ground, using their hands across the dirt to try and get into the classroom, etc. And so I was able to raise funds amazing donors from America gave the funds, and 10 wheelchairs were gifted to these kids, and they were made from scratch, which was really cool to see the local craftsmanship using sewing machines to sew those leather backings of the wheelchairs.
Yes.
And, when you give kids mobility, you're really giving them independence, you're giving them confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really exciting project. And then to tie it back to Alex, who I'd mentioned earlier, the one who guided me down the waterfall, his family I knew had been really struggling. And so from all the way here, it was actually during a break between my medical school classes, I was able to purchase his family a cow through WhatsApp.
Whoa,
And
hold on. You purchased his family a cow through WhatsApp?
yes.
Why? I mean, this isn't everyday type of stuff you hear. You don't hear this all the time.
It's not. And my classmates would lean over like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, no big deal. I'm just buying a cow. Don't worry." So that was really exciting because that cow provides milk for this family, not only as a food source for them, but also they're able to sell it, and the surplus is helping support their children. He has about 4 siblings. And not only that, God was also working behind the scenes because, unbeknownst to me and the seller, the cow was pregnant when we purchased it. And so
Wow.
they now have 2 cows, and that is a huge, huge blessing over there. And it would have been quite expensive as well. So it's great. They still send me pictures of the cows going strong.
So
And
let me ask you this question. So, like, let's say we have maybe some viewers and listeners that want to buy a cow through WhatsApp or something like that. I mean,
yeah,
how do you even do that, or can they do that through your ministry?
yeah, they I would say contact me just because I kind of have the framework in place for that. I would hate for them to try to buy one and then it disappears in WhatsApp land. But
Yes. And
yeah, the framework.
how would they contact you? What's your email address?
Sure. So my email address is from Hearts to Hands Incorporated, or INC, at gmail.com. And the 2 is the number 2. So they could contact me that way. Also on my website, from heartstohands.org, there's a donation tab, and they can donate there and specify what they would like the donation to go towards.
Nice.
So yeah, that would be great if we could get some more families some cows. And then the next year after that, so moving into, let's see, we're in 20, yeah, moving onward, I did a project for that same school for the disabled. So you'll see, I have some pictures of that, of a before and after of the bathroom situation at this school for the disabled. So these kids, some of them do not have use of their legs, but yet they were having to use facilities that were pit latrines, which means these are ground level toilet structures.
Wow.
So that's challenging enough for an able-bodied human. So to ask these kids with disabilities to do that, they're amazing and resilient, and they were managing. However, I think they deserve so much better. And so this project was really exciting to do virtually. I was FaceTime shopping for toilets and sinks again. And I know. And God again worked for this because oftentimes the internet connection, when I try to do a video call or an audio call to Tanzania, it can be really poor. And so I had really low hopes and expectations for being able to properly view these toilets and shower structures that I wanted to purchase. But amazingly, the connection was clear enough for about 10 minutes for us to
Wow.
make those decisions and get those things bought. And not only that, to get from where they were bought to the construction location involved an 8-hour bus ride on
An
bumpy roads.
8-hour bus ride?
Yes. So these items, and these are porcelain toilets, porcelain sinks, were loaded on the undercarriage of a bus and then traveled across bumpy roads for 8 hours, and not one piece was broken.
That's
Which,
incredible.
yeah, it's absolutely like a testament to God's hand on it, because they should have broken, to be honest.
Absolutely. I
And
can order stuff from 30 minutes away and it come in broken, in pieces, and
yeah.
it's not even that bumpy.
Yeah, and nothing broken, which was great because to replace that is not easy. That would be another 8-hour bus ride to get those
Wow.
supplies out there. And so That project was so exciting because we were able to put in brand new bathrooms. There's handrails now next to raised Western style toilets. We were able to put in detachable showers so the kids
Mm-hmm.
can shower. And I was able to visit it about a year later and see it. And seeing the area that this school is in, none of the homes in the surrounding areas even have plumbing systems close to this. So it's
Wow.
really exciting that these kids who are considered the outcasts of their society now have the best in their
Yes.
society. So,
Absolutely. So
yeah.
you've had so many projects, and this is absolutely incredible the way that God has been leading through this whole thing. You've had so many of these projects that have really changed or transformed the lives of the people out there. What are some of the needs of your organization, and how can our viewers and listeners get behind the wonderful projects you have upcoming?
Yeah. So I think one of our biggest needs is funds, to be honest, because a lot of the projects that I do and a lot of the supplies, it can be cheaper to purchase on the ground than to gather donations here in America. Transporting it over can actually be really complicated and often more expensive and
Hmm.
less cost effective. So funds are really what we're needing. And one thing I will say is anyone that donates, you get a picture and video of exactly what your funds went towards. So there's full transparency. And so another project that we have going on is the Kwamkono Feminine Hygiene Product Project.
Okay.
And what we're finding is that girls, oh, yeah, there's the picture of these girls. So girls in this area, they they do not have like access to feminine hygiene products, and so they were having to use rags or leaves, which is really unsanitary. And so we were able to develop a system where they are reusable, and they can have 5 of these products. It's sustainable, and their lives are really changed by it. So now products have been distributed to about 400 girls,
Wow.
and that is something that now that the system is in place, we know it works. A team of seamstresses and their apprentices is hired to make the products. Now that that's all in place, it's so easy to replicate, and so I would love to continue to expand that to other schools, other regions. Actually, just distributed about 300 to 300 girls, and at that school there's 1,000 girls. So we already have the
Wow.
pool of girls available who are wanting these products. So that's definitely an upcoming project. Also, I traveled to a refugee camp in Tanzania that has
Hmm.
about 180,000 refugees. About 50,000 of those are school-aged children. And so there's definitely upcoming projects there wanting to develop an educational app system that could help them. So we're wanting to get tablets into the hands of these kids with an already loaded technology program tailored to their educational grade level
Yes.
in their languages.
Well, hopefully our viewers and listeners will support them and more. What's your website?
Yeah, so the website is fromheartstohands.org.
All right, from heartstohands.org, and they can donate on there as well. Thank you so much for coming on, Doc.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Amen. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, God bless.